Hi guys, today we're going to talk about lesson 4 in unit 7, which talk about simplifying radicals. Let's ask ourselves first, what are radicals? All radicals have the simple radical used to indicate a root. It can be square root or it can be a cube root depending on the index number. This is an example of a radical here to the right. We have the simple radical, which is right here. And then we have the index number that indicate what kind of root we have in this situation. Since the index number is 3, that means we have a cube root. If the index number is not there, that means we're talking about the square root. The number under the radical is called the radicand, and the radicand can be any number. A square root radical is simplified, or it's in the simplest form, if the radicand has no square factors. So if the number under the radical, or as we call the radicand, has no square factors, that means the radical is in the simplest form. We're going to take a look at examples so you guys can understand exactly what that means. Let's take a look at our first example. We have square root of 33. So the radicand in this case is 33. And we need to find out if this radical is in the simplest form or not. We know that 33 has no square factors. There is no two numbers. If I multiply, I get 33, where one of them is a square factor. The factors in this case are 3 and 11. 3 times 11 is 33, but neither of these factors is a square number. That means that this radical is in the simplest form, and there is nothing that we can do to make it more simplified. Now let's take a look at our second example. We have square root of 18. We know that 18 has a square factor, which is 9, because 9 times 2 equals 18. So basically what I can do is switch 18 with 9 times 2. This is not in the simplest form just because of the fact that 9 is a square factor. So what I can do is I can use the fact that says that the square root of a product, which is square root of 18 in this case, is equal to the product of the square root of the factors. That means instead of writing square root of 9 times 2, I can write this as a square root of 9 times square root of 2. I know that 9 is a square factor, and that radical 2 or square root of 2 is an irrational number, because if I put square root of 2 in the calculator, I'm going to end up with a decimal that does not terminate. That means that square root of 2 is an irrational number. And when we write the factors in the square root, we usually put the irrational number to the right of the square root of the largest perfect square. That means that the irrational number is always at the right side of the square root of the square factor. So now what I can do is simplify this radical by taking the square root of 9, which is in this case 3, and all I need to do is to bring the square root of 2 down. So the simplest form of radical 18 is 3 radical 2. Now let's take a look at one more example. This time we have square root of 75. I know 75 is, it has a square factor, and that square factor is 25. 25 times 3 is 75. Now, all I need to do is to change the square root of the product into multiplying the square root of the factors. So in this case, I'm going to end up with square root of 25 times square root of 3. I know that square root of 25 is 5, so all I need to do is to bring down the irrational number, which is square root of 3 to the right of 5, and I'm done.